You made it through parts 1 and 2 without rage uninstalling your favorite editor. That takes real strength and an open mind. But the comments kept flooding in. What about Xcode? What about Android Studio? What about Jupyter? So here we are. Part 3, the final chapter of this series. I'm an IT professor, and today we're covering the mobile developers, the data scientists, the embedded engineers, and the cloud-native rebels. These are the specialized tools purpose-built for specialized tasks. Let's start with the one that runs on a piece of fruit. Xcode. If you use Xcode, you're an Apple developer through and through. You probably haven't touched a Windows machine since the iPod Shuffle was considered state-of-the-art. Your apps are sleek, intuitive, and somehow take up 8 GB just to render a Hello World screen. You live inside the Apple ecosystem like it's a gated community with excellent design standards and a strict HOA. Xcode users don't just write code, they storyboard. Half their time is spent dragging little user interface elements around an interface builder. The other half is spent screaming at provisioning profiles and code signing certificates that expired at the worst possible moment. If their app crashes during a live demo, they'll call it a beta feature with a completely straight face. But here's the honest reality: if you want to build for Apple devices, Xcode is the only real option. It forces you to learn Apple's way of thinking, their patterns, their conventions, their expectations. Learning a platform on its own terms is a genuinely valuable skill that transfers to any ecosystem. Android Studio. If you open Android Studio and your laptop fans don't immediately sound like a Boeing 747 preparing for takeoff, are you even developing for Android? These developers are the caffeine-fueled troubleshooters of the mobile world. They've seen things that would break lesser engineers permanently. Fragmented screen sizes that multiply like rabbits. XML layout files so deeply nested they have developed their own ecosystem and possibly consciousness. Emulator lag that makes time feel like a subjective illusion. Their stack traces are longer than a CVS receipt on double coupon day. But they persist because someone has to build apps for the billions of Android users around the planet. Android Studio has come a long way since its Eclipse-based dark ages, and with Gemini AI features built directly in, it's getting smarter with every release. But the core skill remains the same: patience. Testing across hundreds of device configurations teaches you a resilience that no other platform can match. Jupyter Notebook isn't an IDE in the traditional sense, it's a scientific laboratory for your code. If you use Jupyter, you're likely knee-deep in machine learning experiments, or at least pretending to be while following a tutorial you found at 3 in the morning. You write 3 lines of Python and 20 lines of Markdown explaining why the last cell didn't produce the output you expected. Your browser has 12 tabs open, all running different Jupyter kernels, and none of them have file names that make any sense. If someone tries to close the wrong tab, you panic. That was the one with the good variables and the model that finally converged after 6 hours of training. Jupyter users can crash 128 GB of RAM running a neural network, yet somehow implement gradient descent from scratch without breaking a sweat. Here's my honest advice to students: Jupyter is fantastic for exploration and rapid prototyping. But don't confuse a notebook with production code. Learn to refactor your experiments into proper Python scripts, modules, and packages when it's time to ship. VSCodium is VS Code's cool cousin who doesn't trust Microsoft. Same editor, zero telemetry, all the freedom. If you use VSCodium, you're an open-source purist who reads every end-user license agreement and probably has strong opinions about software licensing at dinner parties. You've replaced every default extension with a forked version compiled directly from source. If someone mentions telemetry, you'll send them a link to a 45-minute video essay on software freedom. Geany users aren't looking for drama or hype, they just want to write some code, compile it, and move on with their day. Geany opens faster than any other IDE in existence because it's basically Notepad with ambitions of being more. If your editor uses more than 10 megabytes of RAM, Geany users consider that unacceptable bloat. And finally, Microsoft Word. Yes, somewhere in the world, someone is writing production code in Microsoft Word. No syntax highlighting. No line numbers. Just you, a blinking cursor, and red squiggly lines appearing under every programming keyword. If this is you, please, I'm saying this as a concerned professor who genuinely cares about your well-being, talk to someone. Let's talk about the new generation of development tools, cloud-based IDEs like Replit, GitHub Codespaces, and Gitpod. If you use these, you're part of the generation that never knew a world without high-speed internet and browser-based development environments. You don't install anything locally. Your entire development environment lives in the cloud, accessible from any device, anywhere in the world with a Wi-Fi connection. You're the kind of developer who values convenience, collaboration, and zero setup friction above all else. Working on a group project? Just share a Replit link. Need to demo something quickly? Codespaces spins up in seconds with all your dependencies pre-configured. Cloud IDEs are genuinely democratizing software development by removing the setup barrier that used to take hours or days. But here's what I tell my students: still learn the terminal. Still understand your tools from the inside out. Because when the internet goes down, and it will, you need to know how your code actually works without relying on a browser window to do the thinking for you. And finally, let's talk about the Arduino IDE. If you use this, you're not just a software developer, you're a hardware hacker, an embedded engineer, and a maker rolled into one. You write code that interacts with the physical world. You've made LEDs blink in perfect sequence, motors spin at precise speeds, and sensors read data from the environment around them. Your debugging process involves a multimeter, a logic analyzer, and an almost supernatural amount of patience. The Arduino IDE is deliberately and intentionally simple. It doesn't have all the bells and whistles of a modern code editor because it fundamentally doesn't need them. You're writing C++ for microcontrollers with severely limited memory and processing power. Every single byte matters. Every millisecond counts. Arduino developers are the essential bridge between the digital world of software and the physical world of hardware. They understand that code doesn't just live on servers, it runs on robots, wearable devices, smart home sensors, and scientific instruments that push the boundaries of what's possible. Xcode, Android Studio, Jupyter, VSCodium, Geany, Word, Replit, Arduino IDE. We've covered an incredible range of development tools across this three-part series. From the corporate power of Visual Studio to the philosophical commitment of Emacs, from the terminal mastery of NeoVim to the hardware hacking spirit of the Arduino ecosystem. Here's what I want you to remember above all else: there is no such thing as a perfect IDE. There is only the right tool for what you are building and how your mind works. Some of you will always prefer a full-featured IDE with deep integration and intelligent assistance. Others will always choose a terminal window and a plain text file. Both approaches are equally valid. The real goal isn't to find the objectively best editor on the internet, it's to understand yourself well enough to know what works best for you. I'm an IT professor. If this series changed how you think about your development tools, hit subscribe. Drop a comment: what IDE did we miss? I'll see you in the next video.